Hello everyone and welcome to our podcast. Imagine you are sitting on a busy bus. It is completely quiet and everyone is looking at their phones, but beneath the silence a million secrets are hiding. What if you could suddenly hear every single voice inside their heads? Today we are going to talk about a fascinating question. What if you could read people's thoughts? We will look at how this superpower would change your daily life, your friendships, and your world. We will discuss the great benefits of knowing the absolute truth, but we will also look at the dark side of having a noisy mind that never gets a break. We have a wonderful psychologist and brain researcher with us today to help us explore this big idea. Let us begin our conversation now.
Thank you so much. It is wonderful to be here today to talk about this amazing topic. Reading thoughts is something we see in many movies and comic books. It seems like the best power in the world. You would always know what people think about you, and you would never be fooled by a lie. But if this power became real today, the initial experience would be a massive shock to the human brain. Our brains are built to hear sounds through our ears. We hear birds, we hear music, and we hear people talking. But thoughts do not have a regular sound. Thoughts are like a constant stream of words, pictures, feelings, and memories. If you suddenly started reading minds, it would feel like someone turned on 100 radios in your bedroom at the exact same time. It would be completely overwhelming.
That sounds very loud and scary. 100 radios playing different songs would make me want to cover my ears, but let us say we learn how to control it. Let us say we can listen to just one person at a time. What happens when we walk into our own home and look at our family?
This is where the power becomes very complicated for our emotions. We love our families deeply and they love us. But humans have a lot of random, small thoughts every day that are not always nice. Let us look at a simple example. You walk into the kitchen and your mother is cooking dinner. She smiles at you and says hello. But when you read her mind, you hear that she is actually very tired, she is worried about money, and she is secretly annoyed that you did not wash your breakfast dish. Or you look at your brother. He says your new shoes look cool, but his mind says that he thinks the shoes are ugly and he wishes he had more money to buy better shoes for himself. Suddenly, you see all the tiny frustrations that people hide to keep the peace.
That would be very painful to hear. We think our families are always happy with us, but they have their own bad days and worries. It seems like reading thoughts would take away the comfort of our homes.
Yes, it really would. Humans use small, polite lies to protect each other every single day. We call them white lies. For example, if a friend gets a terrible haircut and asks for your opinion, you might say it looks fine because you want them to feel happy and confident. But if your friend can read your mind, they will see the true picture. They will see that you think the haircut looks bad. The polite lie is destroyed. Without these small shields of politeness, our friendships would suffer a lot of damage. People would get their feelings hurt constantly. We would realize that even our best friends sometimes feel jealous, bored, or angry with us, even if it is just for a single minute. It would be very hard to maintain a normal friendship.
So we would lose our social shields. Politeness is like a blanket that keeps us warm and safe from harsh truths. What about outside the home? How would this affect people at school or university?
School would become an entirely different place. Let us look at exams and tests first. If a student can read minds, they would never need to study again. They could just sit in the classroom, look at the teacher, and read the correct answers directly from the teacher's brain. Or they could look at the smartest student in the front row and copy their thoughts. School grades would become meaningless because cheating would be impossible to stop. But it goes deeper than tests. Think about how students interact with each other. There is a lot of social worry in high school. Students constantly wonder if people like them, if they are popular, or if people are laughing at them. If a teenager could read the minds of their classmates, they would hear all the judgments, the gossip, and the insecurities. It could create a massive crisis of confidence for young people.
High school is already difficult for many kids. Hearing every judgment out loud inside your head would make it 10 times harder. Let us move to the business world. What happens when you go to a job interview if you can read the boss's mind?
A job interview would become an unfair game. You would sit across from the manager, and as they ask you a question, you would know exactly what answer they want to hear. If they are thinking that they need someone who is good at organizing files, you can immediately say that organizing files is your favorite hobby. You could also see if the manager is being honest about the job. If the manager says the company is wonderful and stable, but their mind is thinking that the company is losing money and might close next year, you would know the danger. You would also know exactly how much money they are willing to pay you. You could ask for the maximum salary because you can see the number hidden inside their brain. You would become incredibly successful at negotiations.
That sounds like a huge advantage for jobs and money. You would always make the right career choices and get the best pay. But what about the other workers? What happens when you are sitting in an office with your coworkers?
The office would become very stressful. In a normal office, people are polite to their colleagues because they have to work together every day. They say good morning and share coffee. But in their minds, they might be thinking that their colleague talks too loudly, or smells like old soup, or did a poor job on the team project. If you can hear those thoughts, the office would feel like a room full of hidden enemies. You would know who is trying to steal your ideas, who is complaining about you to the big boss, and who actually likes you. It would make teamwork very difficult. You might want to work completely alone in an isolated room just to get some peace and quiet.
It seems like this power brings success in business but failure in human connection. Let us look at a different aspect. What happens to the physical health of the person who can read minds? Is it exhausting for the brain?
It would be incredibly exhausting. Our brains use a lot of energy just to manage our own thoughts, movements, and senses. Processing the thoughts of other people would require double or triple the amount of brain power. Think about walking into a crowded place like a train station or a shopping mall. There are thousands of people around you. Each person has a loud internal voice. One person is thinking about their grocery list, another is angry about their late train, a child is crying in their mind for a toy, and an old man is remembering a sad moment from his past. All of these different emotions and words would flood into your brain at the same time. The sheer volume of sadness, anger, fear, and confusion from thousands of strangers would cause immense mental fatigue. It could lead to severe headaches, anxiety, and a total lack of sleep.
I can see why sleep would be impossible. If your neighbors are awake at 2 in the morning thinking about their problems, you would hear them right through the apartment wall. You would never have a quiet moment. Let us look at how this power could help the world. What about police investigations and fighting crime?
This is an area where the power would be a wonderful tool for good. Imagine a detective questioning a person who is suspected of a serious crime. The suspect might say that they were at home watching television during the crime, which is a perfect lie. But inside their mind, the detective would see a clear memory of the crime scene. They would see where the stolen items are hidden or where the weapon was dropped. There would be no need for long, difficult searches or complicated guessing games. Police officers could catch bad people instantly. Innocent people who were wrongly arrested would be set free immediately because the detective would see their complete innocence inside their thoughts. The justice system would become incredibly fast and perfectly fair.
That would be an amazing benefit for society. No more innocent people in jail and no more criminals escaping the law. What about a courtroom trial? How would judges and juries use this information?
A courtroom trial would last only a few minutes instead of many months. A judge would just need to look at the defendant and ask if they did it. The answer inside the mind would settle the case instantly. Juries would not have to listen to confusing arguments from lawyers who are trying to hide the truth. However, this creates a major ethical question about privacy. In our modern world, we believe that our minds are our private property. We have the right to keep our thoughts to ourselves. If the government or the police can look inside your brain without your permission, you lose the ultimate form of freedom. Even if you are a good person who has never broken a law, you might feel terrified because you have strange or embarrassing thoughts that you do not want anyone to see.
That is true. Everyone has weird or silly thoughts that do not mean anything. We do not want people to judge us for a random thought that pops into our head for a second. Let us talk about world leaders and politics. What happens if a president can read the thoughts of other presidents?
Politics would change completely. Right now, international relations are like a giant game of chess. Leaders meet at big tables, smile for cameras, shake hands, and sign papers. But behind the scenes, they are always trying to get the best advantage for their own nation. They hide their true military secrets, their true economic plans, and their true feelings about other countries. If world leaders could read each other's thoughts, secret treaties and surprise attacks would become completely impossible. If one leader is planning to start a war, the other leader would know it months in advance. This could create a very stable form of world peace because no one could cheat or lie. But it could also cause huge arguments if one leader discovers that another leader secretly thinks they are foolish or weak.
It sounds like world leaders would have to become very honest or stop meeting in person altogether. They might only talk through emails written by assistants to hide their real brains. Let us consider the world of love and romance. How does mind reading affect dating and marriage?
Dating would become very efficient but perhaps less romantic. When you go on a first date with someone, you are trying to learn about them slowly. You talk about your favorite movies, your families, and your jobs. You also try to look your best and you hide your flaws. If you can read your date's thoughts, you will know instantly if they like you, if they are bored, or if they are just pretending to be nice to get a free dinner. You would never have to guess if someone wants to see you again. In a marriage, it would remove all misunderstandings. You would always know exactly what your partner needs when they are sad or stressed. You could comfort them perfectly without them saying a single word.
That sounds like a very positive thing for a long relationship. No more guessing why your partner is upset and no more silly arguments about communication. But is there a danger of knowing too much about your partner?
Yes, there is a very big danger. Love needs a small amount of space and mystery to survive. If you know every single thought your partner has, you might hear things that make you uncomfortable. For example, your partner might see an attractive stranger on the street and think for a fleeting second that the stranger is handsome or beautiful. That is a completely normal, harmless human thought that passes quickly. In a regular marriage, it means nothing because actions matter more than fleeting thoughts. But if you can read that thought instantly, you might feel deeply jealous and hurt. You would start to police their mind. You would want to control what they think, which is impossible and unhealthy. It could turn a loving relationship into a prison.
A prison of the mind sounds terrible. It shows us that actions really do matter more than thoughts. A person can choose to be kind and loyal even when they are feeling tired or annoyed inside. Let us talk about medicine and doctors. How could a doctor use mind reading to help sick people?
In medicine, this power would be an absolute miracle. Think about patients who cannot talk. Imagine a baby who is crying constantly, but cannot tell the parents or the doctor where it hurts. A doctor who can read thoughts could look at the baby and feel the exact location of the pain. Think about people who are in a coma or have suffered a severe stroke that blocks their speech. They are trapped inside their own bodies, unable to communicate with their loved ones. A mind-reading doctor could connect with them, hear their wishes, and understand their level of comfort. It would also help psychiatrists help people with deep depression or trauma, because they could see the root of the sadness without forcing the patient to repeat painful stories out loud.
That is a beautiful picture. Helping people who are silent and trapped inside their bodies would be a wonderful use of this superpower. It makes me see that the power is not purely good or purely bad. It depends heavily on how and where it is used.
Exactly. Like any tool or power, it has two sides. If you use it to help a sick child or catch a dangerous criminal, it is a blessing. But if you use it to spy on your neighbors or control your friends, it becomes a curse. If a person really had this power in our world today, the biggest challenge would be learning how to filter the information. They would need to train their brain to build a strong wall. They would need to choose when to listen and when to be completely deaf to the thoughts of others. They would have to learn to respect the mental boundaries of the people around them, just like we respect physical doors and locked gates.
Building a mental wall sounds like a necessary survival skill. If you could not turn it off, you would lose your mind very quickly from the noise and the emotional weight. Do you think a person with this power would eventually choose to live completely alone in nature, far away from cities?
I think many people would choose that path. They would move to a quiet forest or a lonely mountain where the only inhabitants are trees and wild animals. Animals have thoughts too, but their thoughts are much simpler. A dog thinks about food, play, and sleep. A bird thinks about flying and finding seeds. Animal thoughts do not contain complex judgments, lies, or deep existential anxiety. Living around animals would feel like a peaceful song compared to the loud, chaotic shouting of a human city. In nature, a mind reader could finally find true silence and give their brain a chance to rest and heal from the human storm.
A peaceful song instead of a chaotic storm. That is a lovely image. It makes me appreciate the simple silence we enjoy every day. We do not realize how lucky we are that our minds are private and quiet by default.
We really are very lucky. Privacy is a quiet gift that allows us to grow, make mistakes in our heads, and choose our words carefully before we speak them. It gives us the freedom to create our identity. If we lost that privacy, we would lose a core part of what makes us human. When we speak out loud to someone today, it means something special because we chose to share that specific piece of our mind with them. We picked those words out of a million options to show love, kindness, or support. That conscious choice is beautiful, and it would lose its value if people could just reach into our brains and take whatever they wanted without our consent.
That is a very deep thought. The words we choose to speak are a gift we give to others. Mind reading would steal that gift and make it cheap. It seems that the spoken word is much more valuable than a random raw thought.
Yes, it is much more valuable. The human mouth acts like a filter that separates the bad, random thoughts from the useful, kind thoughts. We need that filter to live together peacefully in a society. If we remove the filter, we create chaos. So, while it is fun to imagine having the superpower of telepathy, we should be glad that our brains remain separate and private. We should focus on improving how we listen to the words people actually choose to say to us, rather than wishing we could see what is hidden behind their eyes.
That is a wonderful and comforting conclusion. It makes me look at normal conversations with much more respect and attention. We should value the things people share with us out loud. Thank you so much for coming onto our podcast today and sharing these brilliant ideas. You took a giant, complex question and made it very clear and enjoyable to listen to.
It was my absolute pleasure to be here with you today. It is always exciting to step inside these imaginary worlds because they help us see our real life with more gratitude and understanding. I hope all your listeners feel happy about their private minds tonight and enjoy a beautiful, quiet evening. Thank you for having me, and goodbye, everyone.
What an extraordinary topic to think about. To summarize the key takeaways from our conversation today, we explored the incredible question of what would happen if you could read people's thoughts. We learned that while this power seems like an amazing gift that could help police catch criminals instantly and help doctors understand silent patients, it also carries a very heavy dark side. It would destroy our daily politeness, create intense stress in our families and workplaces, and cause severe mental exhaustion from the constant noise of thousands of voices. We discovered that our private minds are actually a beautiful gift that protects our freedom, and the words we choose to speak out loud are precious gifts of human connection. Thank you again to our expert guest, and thank you to all our wonderful listeners for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this journey into human psychology and imagination, and we'll see you in the next episode.